Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the 56th edition of Texas Longhorns Live at the Voice of College Football. Can you do me a favor? Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we are building here at the Voice of College Football Network, and we really appreciate that. Let's jump right into things. So today comes down the pipeline. Corey Wells commits to the University of Texas. He is the fourth commit of the past 72 hours for the University of Texas. We'll get into the other ones later, and I dropped a couple of videos on those guys, so please check those out as well. But what do you like about Corey Wells, Gerald?
Yeah, this is the weirdest statement I've ever said. He's like a skinny 300-pounder, which is a weird thing to say, right? You watch it, you look at his pictures of him, you watch him on tape, 6'5", 300, plays in like a 4.3 in high school. So, I don't know where he's going to land at Texas because he plays both at interior and kind of outside. But like he gives that positional versatility we talk about a lot, where he may come into Texas and he puts on 20, 30 pounds and slides inside. He may stay at that 300, lean up a little bit, and then play more with three technique, right? So we're not exactly sure. I think we get an indication where we look at the other defensive linemen that committed in this last, I think probably like 36 hours really on the defensive lineman. Kenny Baker having himself a little bit of go. But he uses his hands really well. He plays a bit tall, but he's just kind of mauls people with that size and strength that he has. And so, ultimately, I think he gives Pete Kwiatkowski and Kenny Baker a piece that they can say, okay, he shows up on campus. How does his body develop? How does it change, from 18 to 19 to 20? How does he change? How does he develop? And ultimately, they can deploy him in multiple ways. And it's not a bad thing to have multiple big guys that you can say that about.
No, I agree. I think he plays really well versus the run, especially. And I think you see that with Dylan Berryman and him. I think these are your two nose tackles in this class. I think they're basically done at that position for right now. Not done the defensive line position at all. Obviously, I think you're going to add two, maybe three more guys there, depending on the prospects. Obviously, you're willing to stretch the limit you take there if a guy's like a Lamar Brown. If Lamar Brown wants to come to Texas and Texas at 4, they're going to take Lamar Brown. If it's someone like a 2 or 3 star, probably not going to take him if they're already at 4. But I think this guy plays great. Leverage is what I see. Even for his size, he plays with pretty good leverage. But I agree. I don't think he is someone you plug and play right away. Like, I think this guy, again, sit for a year, maybe even 2, and then plays at the University of Texas. But he's a guy that is wanted by a lot of SEC schools, so a very good football player. Auburn wanted him. He went on a visit to Ole Miss. Mississippi State, obviously pretty close. They wanted him as well. No offense to them. That's kind of out of their ballpark. I know he's close, but this guy, when you're getting Auburn, Ole Miss, and Texas involved, no offense, Mississippi State's just not playing in that realm right now. But yeah, 6'5", 300 pounds is crazy. This is a guy that could easily be 6'6", 330 by the time he plays real football at Texas, which is a large human being. We're talking T'Vondre Sweat level like height, but in better shape than T'Vondre Sweat was at the University of Texas. So that'd be really, really crazy if he's able to play there at that weight. And overall, Texas has just done a phenomenal job of filling the holes they need. And I think they're starting to specify also on the defensive line, getting a guy like this in Dylan Berryman. They're not having to get these tweeners and then kind of putting them where they need them to be. They're like, hey, this guy's a perfect nose tackle. Guess what? We're going to fill him out, get his frame right, teach him how to pass rush, and he's going to be great because he's already good versus the run. And that's basically what you want your nose tackle to be anyways.
Yeah, and I think you look at again a guy with his skill set, with his size, and Texas has a history of taking guys who are he is a bit of a tweener, not necessarily from an evaluation standpoint, but from is he going to play more inside? Is he going to play more outside? You look at a guy. I mean, T'Vondre Sweat came to Texas as a defensive end. Right, Byron Murphy came to Texas as a more outside player, as a defensive end. I think if memory serves, right. So Texas has an opportunity to really create a pipeline of these guys where they can take them, shape their body, put them in the right position, and ultimately Texas has this brand now that they're putting defensive linemen in the league, right, for multiple years. For the last 3 or 4 years, Texas has had guys playing in the league at high levels, dating back to Poona Ford, right. Even under Tom Herman and Charlie Strong, guys like Poona Ford came in. Texas has done a really good job of showing that they're the place to go if you want, as a defensive lineman, to get into the league. And we've talked about it before on this show. the guys that Texas is recruiting are not going to, or they're always going to get paid regardless of where they end up. So showing Kenny Baker doing a really good job of showing his plan for these guys, showing their future at Texas, and showing that, hey, if you want to go to the league as a defensive tackle, come play for us. It's really, really incredible what Texas has done. Folks were concerned after Bo Davis left for LSU, and I think Kenny Baker has done incredible things already at the defensive line position for Texas.
Rick, shout out to you, my friend. He is a new subscriber as well. Byron, I have not seen you in here, so if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe as well. But Rick was defending me in the comments with the Ohio State video, so I appreciate that, Rick. And I got you off the screen there. You asked me to get your ugly mug off the screen, so I got you off the screen. But yeah, I think this is a big win because, you know, Texas has been able to get guys drafted in the past, even under Tom Herman, even a little bit under Charlie Strong, but it's been the trenches that have been missing. And we see Lee Allen Clark come in. We see guys like that come in, Kenny Baker, who, you know, we questioned. We did not know how he would do. Guess what? He's killed it. He's done better than Bo Davis did in college at recruiting. Development, we'll have to see. He's doesn't have that track record yet, but the defensive line is starting to catch up, hopefully, to what the offensive line is, because the offensive line right now is just a machine under Kyle Flood. It kind of recruits itself. There's guys headed off to the league every year. I'm not really concerned about it. We're pretty close there with the defensive line. The edges are there. It's the interior, and Corey Wells and Berryman helped this out a tremendous amount on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. And it gets a lot easier to develop guys when you have the raw materials, right? When you have guys like Corey Wells, and we'll talk about Berryman here in a second, or the folks that Kenny Baker landed in the last cycle. Kenny Baker, of his 6 commits that he's had in 2 years under Texas, 4 of them have been top 250 guys, or 5 of them, excuse me, top 250, 3 of them top 150, right? Like, he has a really good track record. And again, it gets a lot easier to develop these cats if you've got the good raw materials to work from.
100%. David Keith Williams, completely agree with this. The advantage of Texas getting Dylan Berryman, who is potentially a great nose tackle, and Corey Wells, who is potentially very good, is that Texas will not be forced to add 5 DTs in the portal. That's 100% correct.
100%.
Like, you get these guys in the pipeline. Also, it's going to be interesting. We'll get to the house settlement thing. If you're able to keep them in the pipeline, like you've been able, you know, Texas guys that they have not wanted to transfer have not transferred. So if you're able to keep these guys and just keep stockpiling and rotating them in every other year, doing a really good job, and you may only have to go in the portal to get, you know, 1 or 2 guys instead of 5. I completely agree with that.
And especially with stacking that with the last class, the previous class, Texas has a ton of beef coming in from that class as well. Guys that may play in the fall. So I think, David, you are absolutely right. Texas, hopefully, fingers crossed, is out of the days of having to add 5 or 6 guys literally in the last 2 years, it's been 10 defensive tackles that Texas taken in the portal, which is absolutely nuts to say out loud. But like, this is hopefully going to stem that tide.
Yeah, and there's a difference from taking someone that jumps in the portal is like, oh, everyone wants that guy, to, let's be honest, most of these guys were, you know, retread guys that were rotation players. They're not guys that are going to come in and like, damn, that guy's day 1 starter. He's going to kill it. As we don't even know this year, guys. Like Hero Canoe, do we know if he's going to be good? Do we know if Travis Shaw's going to be good? I think Cole Brevard's going to be pretty good. But other than that, I don't know about the other defensive tackles.
Yeah, and the next comment from our friend David in the chat, you know, talking about Sharma and Charles already on campus, right? These last 2 classes, I think, are really going to be critical for Texas's ability to, again, stem the tide of having to, let's just be honest, like last year, they were trying to moneyball the Trevondre Sweat and Byron Murphy situation. They were like, hey, we cannot replace these guys with talent, so we're going to try to replace them with just numbers. And that's been, again, another year of that in the offseason. So for Texas, these 2 classes, you're absolutely right, are going to go a long, long way for them to not have to play a shell game, for lack of a better term, in the portal at defensive tackle.
Yeah, you know, the movie Moneyball didn't have a sequel. Texas does this year, because it is
right.
The same thing this year. Can these 5 guys come in and equal the 2 guys that we lost? We'll have to see. But that does it for the Corey Wells commits to Texas. We'll jump right into this. Texas killing it in recruiting. So obviously I got my thoughts on Dylan Berryman, Corin Brown. We haven't talked about the kicker yet. I did not make a video about him, so we will get into that. But I'm going to let you speak on the 2 guys that committed to Texas first. What do you think about them?
Yeah, I'll start with Berryman because I think he is He played a little bit of like the will he won't he, like he wasn't going to go to Purdue. Let's just be real about this.
Yeah.
And so for him to come in to Texas, like we said, Texas is starting to stockpile talent in the trenches. This is a guy who's a pretty ready-made nose tackle, right? He comes in 6'2", 6'3", 310, like 320-ish, probably coming into campus. When he gets, I'm always curious to see what these guys' weights do when they get into the right nutrition program and into the right strength program. I think, he might hover right at that 315, 320, but put on better weight maybe than he has in high school, just because they don't have the facilities. Another thing I love about this, going into Louisiana, getting a kid from Louisiana. Again, it's hard to pull a kid out of Louisiana and then pull them past Texas A&M is huge for Texas, huge for what Kenny Baker's trying to do. Top 100 kid, right? He is really going to come in, I think, make some waves pretty early for Texas. And again, starts the summer recruiting off with a really big name commitment. That goes a long way for what Texas is trying to do this summer.
100%. I agree with that. I think he plays pretty early for Texas. He's got that ready-made body. A lot like the first picture I saw of Josiah Sharma. I think Josiah Sharma is probably going to play a little bit more than your casual fan thinks he's going to play this year, just because of the body type. Like, that guy's ready to play football. Justice Terry, before he got sick, was ready to play football body type-wise. I think Dylan Berryman is 100% that guy when he steps onto campus next year.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to see him develop. Again, I always say this is my thing. Like, I'm curious to see what these guys' bodies, because if you look at some of the cats that are on campus now that are, these early enrollees, they are transforming and they're going to be incredible to watch on campus. You mentioned Cohen Brown as well. This is one of those ones where, like, I always say, like, don't look at the stars, watch the tape and look at the offers, right? 6 foot 190, very like typical what Sark is looking for at a wide receiver. I think the biggest thing that is like the big green flag for me is, like, you flipped him from Lincoln Riley, right? A Lincoln Riley wide receiver. Say what you want about his abilities and what he's done at USC. The guy has had a really pretty good track record of evaluating wide receiver talent. And so, a month ago, he decommits from USC. This weekend he commits to Texas. And so that's a big deal for us. He's a track kid, long strider, really able to use that long stride to create space. He's not going to be your short burst quickness like we see with some of those guys on campus now, but a very long strider, long speed, 100, 200 meter guy in track. So, like, really able, that 200 speed, again, going to do a lot for Texas, ability to high point the ball. I think he is probably a kid who will get some additional looks now that Texas is in his corner, and probably will see a star rise a little bit and contribute to all the burnt orange media conspiracy talks. But again, there's a reason why guys like Lincoln Riley wanted him on their squads. And so Texas able to grab that and land that is going to be huge.
No, we're on the complete same page here. When I made the video about as soon as he committed to Texas and I saw 515 nationally, I didn't understand it. I think he's more of around the 350 nationally is I think where he ends up ranked, because this guy's way too talented. He had 54 catches for 1,084 yards and 20 yards per catch last year. That's a very, very productive season. And Jerry Hamilton of On Texas said something very interesting. And I hate that teams do this. I do not understand it. I will never understand it. People wanted to see whether the track time verified his tape. I hate that. I absolutely despise that. What I see with my eyes is what I would trust, because that's how, like, guys go to TCU and you wonder, damn, why didn't Texas recruit that? Well, it's because, his track time didn't verify his tape. Well, if his tape's freaking good, offer the kid. I don't really care about, like, cool. It's cool to have track time and the tape. But if the tape says, you know what, this guy's really effing good, then guess what? I'm just going to be like, hey, let's throw him an offer and see what happens. That is why Gary Patterson was so successful at TCU. He watched the tape and saw, why aren't people offering this guy? Oh, well, his numbers and measurables aren't that good. Well, they turn out to be guys that would go there, kill it, make it to the NFL, and play pretty well in the NFL too. So I don't understand why teams still do that. It's cool and all to have both, but if I'm choosing between the two, I'm choosing tape all day, every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Jonathan Brooks, right? A guy who was not that highly recruited, but then Texas former running back coach saw his tape and extended an offer, right? You look at the tape, you see how a guy plays, you're like, yep, he's got what we need. And then it turns out to be, again, Brooks was an incredible running back for Texas in that 1 year before he got hurt. So, like, there is something to be said about, like, these numbers can be juiced, right? They're judged by the players, the heights, the measurables, and all of that. But, like, what you see on tape is what you see on tape. But when I watched his tape, the long stride. He's got two strides every 5 yards. The guy is just eating up turf. Like, he's a very long strider. I think part of the issue is that he doesn't look like he's moving that fast because he's such a long strider. He's got such long legs that it's like, oh, the kid's kind of jogging. Like, oh no, he's outrunning these people with good pursuit angles on him. It's like, at some point you gotta trust your eyes and trust the tape and trust what you're seeing. But I think he's a kid. Again, I look at the tape, look at the offers. He's got all the right offers. He's got all the right things on tape. I loved watching it. So I'm excited for Texas to land this kid and really, really add a player that I think is going to become one of those high flip candidates that people are going to be clamoring after late in the cycle.
And also, it tells me a lot that he also touched the ball running back wise as well. That means, hey, this guy's a really good athlete. Let's just get the ball in his hands. That fits obviously very well in Sark's scheme. He just wanted to get his athletes in space with the football. So that's another check. I really like him. I think he's going to be a really good player for Texas. Again, I don't think he's a guy that plays year one, but I think year two, you hear about him a lot when he does come to the University of Texas. Let's hit on that kicker, Jake Collette. What do you think about him? I know he kicked, I think his high in high school is 56 yards, and I think he's ranked the #1 kicker according to 247.
Yeah, so he's you look at the 247, he's got him at a 4-star or a 3-star, right? Cole's Professional Services is one that ranks kickers, and they've got him as a 5-star kicker, 4.5-star punter, which is weird. Didn't know we're doing half stars, but he's got a 50-yarder on tape in the fog, which was weird. You couldn't really tell, but it's a 50-yarder. Hits for both hashes. As a place kicker, he puts it out of the back of the end zone. So I think he's got opportunities to be versatile for Texas. But a kid who's hitting 50 plus in high school, and it's verified, right? They've got tape on him doing it, so it's great. I hope Texas gets to a point where we're not hoping the next freshman to come in on scholarship is the one to stem the tide of weirdness that Texas has. But I think he's got the capabilities and abilities. I think Jeff Banks has found what he wants in a kicker. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We said that about previous kickers, but having this kid in the bank, having this kid locked up as, again, somebody who's got verified 50 plus yarders, hitting from both hashes, 30, 40, 50 yards. I think he's going to be great to have.
No, I do too. And I think it tells you a lot that honestly, we're giving this guy a scholarship in this day and age. You don't even see that much anymore. But then also, they got this locked up pretty quickly. I think they saw what happened last year and said, hey, this cost us an SEC championship. We had to make a move going into a semifinal of a playoff game. That shouldn't be happening here. And I think Sark said, enough is enough. Let's actually put the work in that is needed here at the kicker position that we do everywhere else along the roster. So I'm excited to have him, hopefully 6th in the class. It's going to be interesting if he is just purely a kicker at the University of Texas. I know Justin Tucker did kick and punt for the University of Texas for a little bit of time. So that's going to be interesting to me, what they decide to do there. But I'm just glad we have a decent kicker in the pipeline. Hopefully he pans out.
Yeah, again, he's a guy who's done all three, kick, punt, and do kickoff. So I'm curious where he lands in Texas. Obviously, the field goals is what Texas needs the most. But a guy who can do all three, or a guy who can even do 2 of the 3, really allows, especially with the way that scholarships and roster numbers are going to be having to be massaged in the near future, something to obviously keep an eye on.
100%. Now, let's talk about this as well. Felix Ojo cancels his visit to Oklahoma today. He visited Michigan last week. What do you think this means for Texas and Felix Ojo moving forward? He is visiting this week, the 13th.
Yeah, so I think it's very clearly that it's down to Michigan and Texas, right? Obviously, if you cancel your visit to one of your finalists, then you're probably not going to make it there. There is, in the Michigan circles, there's a lot of excitement that maybe Michigan was able to lock it down this weekend. Ojo's been, the tea leaves have looked Texas for a very long time. So I'm biased. Obviously, I'm wearing a burnt orange shirt. I've got my diploma right behind me on the live stream. But I really think this might be a case where Michigan had it shot, didn't really hit the shot. And so I think, Texas really is, you get out to see another campus after he's been to Texas a couple of times. You get out to another campus, you see it, and you're like, oh, I know where home is. And so, that's my belief on this, that he gets out to Michigan, maybe doesn't quite have the experience that he wants there, realizes that, he's looking for what Texas already has to offer. So hopefully that's the read on it. I think Texas, he's a must-land kid for Texas. It's hard to say that a coach that's been as successful as Kyle Flood has a must-land kid, but when you have a top 5, recruit in your backyard, and there are at your position, obviously that's a guy that you have to land. So, that's my biased read on it. I don't have any sources, but that's what it feels like to me reading the tea leaves.
No, I agree. And anyone that doesn't know who Felix Ojo is, 6'6", 275 pounds, according to 247 composite, number 2 offensive tackle, number 7 player overall in the class. So wherever you go, he's going to be a top 10 player in the class, and number 1 or number 2 offensive tackle. So really big deal. Texas needs to land, and we've talked about this. Him and John Turntine, to me, are must-gets in this class, and it makes a hell of an offensive line class, and one that you could argue is just as good as that 2022 class. So
yep.
I agree. I think it either means he really loved the Michigan and he's going to give Texas one more chance. And if he doesn't like it as much, then he's going to go to Michigan, or he saw Michigan. He's like, you know what? Texas is home. When I get there this weekend, I'm going to commit and make this thing a done deal. I do think he ends up at Texas. If I had to put a percentage on it, I think it's 75-25 right now. And that I would say he ends up at Texas. I think all signs have been pointing there for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's anybody that's sourcing it. I'm not sourced. I don't have sources, but folks that I trust their reads on it, have that similar read. And I think that's what the tea leaves. I've been following recruiting for probably a painfully long time. If the gray hairs in my chin have any indicator of how long I've been doing this, that's just what makes sense based on the timing and based on everything that we've seen. And before we move on, we gotta talk. Our friend David in the chat has got a lot of great analysis for us on the wide receiver recruiting. I want to hit on that before we move on.
Yeah, this one right here. He says DeAndre Moore, 2023, Parker Livingston, 2024, Dalen McCutcheon, 2025, and Cohen Brown, 2026. He talks about over the past 4 recruiting classes, including 2026, Texas seems to have at least one wide receiver that redshirts, but his second year could be a big difference maker. And I agree with that. I actually think Dalen McCutcheon is going to play a lot this year. Like if you listen to all the spring news out of spring camp, it was him getting the majority of like slot reps, honestly, when DeAndre Moore was out. And that kind of surprised both you and I, Gerald, because we both thought Jamie French or Khalil Lockett would get more playing time than Dalen McCutcheon. But I honestly think Dalen McCutcheon is going to get more playing time this year than both of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, McCutcheon got on campus and proved what he needed to do, right? He got his body right. He got in there. This is one of those, we've talked about it before. Texas has a ton of talent to pull from. We don't know what any of it is going to do when the lights are on Saturdays, right? So I think, Texas has an opportunity, and it looks like the Texas staff has, like David pointed out, a pretty solidified plan where you land an elite cat. Texas has a 5-star already in the class. It's probably going to play wide receiver. Again, a little bit of a different mold than what Texas is normally looking at, but a guy who's going to come in and see the field early. And then you have a kid that, like we mentioned, Cohen Brown, a fast kid, 10'6", 100. David pointed out in the chat. I had that in my notes, David. I promise you, I had it in my notes as well. But like he's a kid who has that long speed for Texas that can really, be a guy that takes the top off of defense. You put him in one-on-one on the outside, and you really create some space for all the other things Texas likes to do. So he's a guy who's going to have a lot of work in Austin in the future.
100%. And I completely agree with this comment, considering that Texas did not get Michael Fasusi in the 25 class, even though they did get Nick Brooks. I think Texas absolutely needs to get both Felix Ojo and John Turntine. And I don't think it's just because of that. It's because they're in your state. When you have these type of guys in your state, you have to lock them down and get them to the University of Texas. But I agree with that, because to me, like I said, the 2022 class turned this thing around. If you don't land another class like that soon, because I'm going to be honest, the recruiting classes of the offensive line the past couple of years they've been good, but they haven't been great. And this to me is kind of like a reload class for that to get that offensive line cycle going again. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and I think you're looking at probably 4 or 5 guys on that side of the ball. I think the way that the numbers are looking and the way that Texas is positioned with a lot of these kids. You're probably going to see 4 or 5 guys in this class. Hopefully, Ojo and Turntine are the top 1 and 2, right, in that group. This is really, like you said, going to look like the 2022 class. I think on both sides of the line, right? 2022, more like half of the class was offensive and defensive linemen, and I think you're going to see something similar with the way Texas, again, is attacking those positions. The offensive line, the defensive line. Texas already has 2 defensive linemen in the class. They've got 4 total linemen, 2 on the offensive side, 2 on the defensive side. They've got Ojo visiting this weekend. They've got Turntine visiting next weekend. Got a whole long list of cats that are going to visit, and hopefully a lot of them commit to Texas. But I think we're looking at another class where you have, a 17-20 number, and like almost half, if not almost half of those guys are in the trenches.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's what's going to end up happening because you already have everything else kind of plugged up. Like, we don't need wide receivers. We have a plenty of wide receivers, definitely plenty of tight ends now. Like, they're young and unproven, but we got plenty of them.
Yeah.
Running backs, pretty good there. It's really offensive and defensive linemen because cornerbacks, we've done a fantastic job of recruiting. Safeties, we've done a fantastic job of recruiting. It really is just offensive lineman, defensive lineman, maybe sprinkling a linebacker, but overall we've done a really good job recruiting and getting everything, filled up in the pipeline.
Absolutely.
That does it for Texas killing it in recruiting. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, guys, if you know anyone that would like to sponsor the Voice of College Football, whether that is our channel, the Iowa channel, the main channel, whatever channel it may be, we really appreciate when you guys do that. And right here, we have the Win Agency here, guys, up on the screen. And it really helps us out when we get one of these sponsors. Get your business, product, or service or personal brand to the next level. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners posted on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, guys, check out the Amazon link in the description. Father's Day, fast approaching this weekend. You know what? Amazon got Prime. You can get it there in 1 to 2 days. So please use that. Also, Prime Day coming up in, I believe, the next month. If you're someone like me addicted to caffeine and energy drinks, I'm going to be using that a lot, and I will be using the link. So we really appreciate when you guys do use that link. It does not change anything, guys. Nothing. All it does is put a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket. We really appreciate you guys doing that. And speaking of Mark Rogers, here he is.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
We also have a great website that you can check out, guys. Just check out Voice of College Football, Google, Yahoo, Bing, whatever your search engine is. Just type in the Voice of College Football. It will come up. We really appreciate you guys doing that. And last but not least, the Instagram page. You guys just have to type in Voice of College Football on Instagram. You'll get your latest news analysis, whatever you need right there. Obviously, we'll be ramping up very soon because we got football in 80 days or something like that. So right around the corner. So please check that out as well, guys. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Now, next up, very important topic, very interesting how this is all going to turn out. What does this house settlement mean for Texas? And we might as well explain this. What does it mean for college football going forward? Gerald, I will let you hit this one off first. We got you muted, Gerald.
I always mute during the ad so I don't say something dumb. So the house settlement coming out, is a ruling that's going to allow the player or the schools to pay players directly for good services rendered, for lack of a better term, and create also a clearinghouse within the NCAA or of NCAA schools that are going to review the market value for NIL deals overall. It's going to create some scholarship limits and some scholarship levels, and some roster limits and levels for each program. I am not a lawyer or a legal expert. I know college athletics, and I know what I've heard from smarter people share. And a couple of things that really like flag for me in this is like the first thing, I don't know how this enforcement clearinghouse is going to ever be effective. It seems wild to me that the NCAA, that has been sued into oblivion over the last several years, thinks that this is going to fly because as soon as the clearinghouse says that, oh, this is not fair market value, like how do you determine what's fair market value for somebody in the value that they want to pay somebody? You can't. Like it is literally a moving target that you can't pay because fair market value is just kind of what people say it is in the system that we're currently using. So that's going to be interesting for me to see. I also am curious about what the allowances for full scholarships for other sports, baseball and all of that. Other schools. I think Texas is not going to be a school that has an issue with this. Texas, the richest, college athletics program in the country. And obviously Texas has the opportunity to meet all of those needs for student athletes. I love it for the student athletes. If this doesn't have the massive negative impact that something it will on the non-revenue and especially the Olympic sports, I think, the United States is one of the only countries of our size that doesn't have like a ministry of sport that is helping oversee a lot of these international competition. And let's be honest, like you and I, we both love watching international sports. We love cheering USA during the Olympics, during the World Cup. We always watch. I watch the medal counts. I'm always cheering for the US when it comes to international sports. And this is going to potentially have a negative impact on development in those areas, so track and field, swimming, all of those gymnastics, all those non-revenue sports that are propped up by some of what football and basketball to a lesser degree do for these schools. And so I'm curious to see how that plays itself out because Texas, when the football was bad, the Olympic sports carried the athletic department for a very long time: volleyball, swimming, golf, rowing, those types of things. So for Texas, Texas is not going to have the monetary issues that some smaller schools do. Also, Title IX is going to get really weird depending on how things go and payments and how teams, athletic departments have to restructure based upon the necessary payments to players. So I don't know if it solves anything. I think it just creates a new slate of problems, but I'm glad that we're inching closer to, the logical agreement for this with, student athletes as employees of the university.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a step in the right direction. 20.5 million, if you guys didn't know, is the number for all sports. That's how it's going to be divided. Most schools, I think, are going to probably spend $17 to $19 million on football, and the rest of it's going to go to every other sport. You might have some schools that do a little bit less. I could see Texas doing like 16 million because that's the thing too. I think Austin has its advantages now. It's not a smaller city anymore. It's a pretty big city. And I think what you're going to see now is relying on the community and other businesses to support NIL. And I think that's how it should have been from the beginning. If this stays, again, this is all if, because this could and probably will get sued into oblivion is my guess. But we'll have to find out and wait for that. But that is how, in my opinion, NIL should work. And I agree. The biggest thing is that fair market value thing, because I don't know how you determine that. Maybe they go, hey, this guy is top 5 in your position, kind of like a franchise tag in the NFL. When someone gets franchise, I think they take the average of the top 10 highest paid at that position. Maybe that's how it work. Hey, these guys have the top 10 highest paid at your position, and you're making this, you can only make this. Maybe that's how it goes. I don't know. But I do agree. I think I've never liked the boosters just straight up, giving money. I've never been a fan of that. So I'm cool with that. This is kind of like a soft cap is how I look at it. And then Austin and hopefully the dealerships, the community and the businesses in the surrounding area will help out with NIL and stuff like that. And we won't really miss a beat. I will say this: smaller places are going to it's going to be a big deal. Like, think about it. Athens is not that big. Athens, Georgia is not, so they're going to have to go to Atlanta for that. And maybe with Georgia Tech there, Georgia Tech becomes a bigger NIL powerhouse because of that. And Georgia, maybe we'll have to see. That's going to be very interesting to look at things like that. Norman is not a big city, guys, a very small city. How does that affect Oklahoma? I have no idea. Do they have enough businesses to support their football team, their basketball team, their baseball team, and so on and so forth? So stuff like that's going to be very interesting. Any deal, again, over $600 has to be looked at, which is who's going to be the first person to create a company and pay 50 deals of $599? Let's take bets on that because that's going to happen. Someone's going to create a BS company, funnel money through it, and say this guy signed a deal for 50 deals for $599.
Well, and I think you've got a point there, right? You're joking, but like, college football for years and years was a dark money industry, right? I've said it on record on multiple occasions. I parked in the same parking structure as student athletes at the University of Texas, and I saw $100 handshakes go down. I probably shouldn't say that on a live stream, but I saw it happen. I'm not going to say who or when, but I saw it happen, right? And so ultimately, like, we're kind of going to try to push, I think, some of that back to this dark money industry where people are going to be paying, a player from 5 different companies multiple contracts of $500 or whatever it might be to make that gap. I do love the idea of getting back to true NIL. I love getting back to that of like the example I always think of. If you follow Jordan Whittington on Instagram, go back a few years when he was still on campus, and like the dude was outside of a teeth whitening place posting a selfie next to the sign because they whitened his teeth for free, right? Or like you got a meal comped and he posts something outside of the restaurant. Like I love the idea of like true NIL like being the focus of this, because ultimately I think that the combination of collectives and the unlimited transfer rule is creating a pretty toxic environment for college football. So I hope this is a step back to, I'm not saying I don't want the players to get paid.
Yeah.
I have long been on record saying that players deserve fair market value. It is $1 billion industry. And up until 5 years ago, they weren't seeing any of that above the table. So that is not what I'm saying. But I think getting back to the true spirit of what NIL was for, I don't love the collective situation. I think that's still going to happen. I think it's going to have to be a little bit smarter and a little bit different of how they're doing it. But ultimately, I think this is getting back to hopefully what NIL was supposed to be when it was signed into law a few years ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think this all ends with collective bargaining. I mean, every other sport has this at professional level. Let's just not pretend this is a professional sport basically now. It's basically like a junior NFL. And I think it's kind of needed because I agree. I don't mind players making money from what they do at the University of Texas. I mind it when they're coming out of high school and getting $1 million because Texas wants them there. And guess what? If they bust guys, they got that $1 million and they provided nothing for the university. Or if they do something amazing, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ask for a raise. So it's kind of one-sided now. And we see this in the opposite in professional sports. It's usually more one-sided towards the owners. Right now, it's way more one-sided towards the players. And we've seen that balance. 10 years ago, everyone over here, other than the players, had control. Now all the players have control and the institutions have no control.
Yeah, and I think it's impossible to strike the perfect balance because I think every CBA you see in every major sport, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction. One CBA, it's the coaches. One CBA, it's the players, and back and forth. And so again, I think the players, the NCAA kind of just took all of the guardrails off. I have 3 small kids. Like if I just open the door and let my kids run in the street, like somebody's going to get hit by a car. And that's kind of what the NCAA did with NIL. Like they dropped the transfer, they changed the transfer rules, they changed the NIL rules, and we're just like, hey, we're just throwing our hands up and you're going to let y'all figure it out. We'll let the market dictate it. And I do think that the market was correcting a bit with some of these things. I do think that, these crazy deals that some kids were getting were probably going to go by the wayside, or at least get a little bit more normalized. But hopefully this again gets us back to true NIL. And Texas, I think for Texas specifically, I don't think Texas is going to have any trouble getting the true NIL thing. You got players driving around in Porsches and brand new F-150s and all of those things, in Maseratis and whatever it might be. So Texas is not going to have any issue with players really being like in the true NIL space. Again, the big curiosity for me, how long does this clearinghouse last? And I think I'm putting my over under at like 6 months. I think they're going to get sued pretty quickly. Again, I don't know what fan base it'll be, but there are many very litigious athletic organizations out there, and I think this clearinghouse won't be long for the world.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think you'll see now, like we said, go back to the old NIL and the dark money ways, but also what it was supposed to be, where, hey, if this guy got that Lamborghini, he's probably going to be seen on a Lamborghini ad in Austin now, which that's how it should work. It shouldn't be, here's your Lamborghini, go have fun, play at Texas. It should be, he got this Lamborghini because he shot an ad for us and he plays at the University of Texas. That's how it should work. Just like you see the professional athletes, they shoot an ad for New Balance. They have New Balance shoes. They also play their sport. They get paid both ways. It works out. That's how it should work at the University of Texas as well. And I feel good for like the guys on the roster, like the 75th best guy on the roster, because now, hey, they get a cut of this money. They're happy about this. The top guys, the top 5 to 10 of them probably don't love it, but the majority of the roster does like it.
And those top 5 or 10 guys are going to get taken care of by, again, Ferrari of Austin or whatever, whatever car dealership or whatever, local businesses. Quinn Ewers was doing like law commercials, 44444, right? So like they're going to get taken care of regardless. So I'm again, it's going to be fine at Texas. I'm curious about the Olympic sports in other small, like Stanford is a school that's really gone all in on Olympic sports rather than football. And so I'm curious to see how schools like that really deal with that. But again, it's an ever-changing landscape. And again, this will probably only last like 3 years, and then something else will come up and it'll change.
Well, it's interesting with Stanford too, because I could see them just completely ignoring their football team and paying the majority to their Olympic sports. I don't know if they're ever going to compete at a high level in football. So why not just go all in on Olympic sports?
Yeah, it's good. They are very much all in on Olympic sports already. So how much farther can they go in? I think is the question.
Yeah, a school, I think someone said on a podcast, Iowa State may not be able to survive, and that would suck, like schools like that, because they probably don't have the money to pay this each and every year and stay and keep up with the Joneses per se. So that's going to be interesting, and that would be obviously that would suck, because that's what those schools like that are what differentiate college from the NFL. So I would have an issue with that if it kills them.
100%.
So that does it. What does the House settlement mean for Texas? In short, for Texas, not really worried about it. Top 15, 20 brands in college football, don't have to worry. Everyone else, it's going to be pretty interesting how this comes out. Next up, Kavion Bryan gets an offer from Texas. This is a 2027 quarterback, highly rated, already a top 40 player according to 247 composite. I think he ends up being a 5-star recruit by the time that cycle's over. That's how talented this guy is. Dual sport athlete with basketball and football. Dad is a Division I or former Division I basketball player at Mississippi Valley State. Gerald, what do you like about this guy? What do you think it says about Texas? Because he's not your prototypical Steve Sarkisian quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas and Sark are really willing to look at the right players. And I think in high school, as his sophomore tape, he's not a prototypical Texas quarterback based on play style. But I think if you look at what he does with the ball when he throws it, he's got the arm strength that Steve Sarkisian covets from a quarterback. And I think that's the big differentiator. I think Sark is looking at, and I think in college football in general, it's moving toward a world where you're not going to have statue quarterbacks. I think the last statue quarterback Steve Sarkisian is ever going to have is Mac Jones, and he turned Mac Jones into a first rounder. We saw how that worked out. But ultimately, Kavion Bryan, when you watch his deep ball, he's got a great touch on the deep ball. He's got a really good, strong arm. And I think he's going to develop as a natural passer under Stark and Sark and then bring with him that athleticism that we see. Recruiting cycles past probably would have been classified as your dual threat guy, where it's kind of he needs some development as a passer, but as an elite runner. This kid is one of those elite runners. He isn't. You don't want to call him a run first quarterback, but he's maybe a little too quick to abandon the pass. Again, he was a sophomore playing varsity ball, so you have to take that into account, but can be a game changer with his feet as well. I think when you look at what Sark values in a quarterback, he's big, he's got a strong arm, and I think he's able to move the pocket in a way that will allow him to be successful at the next level, because that's just what college football is, and football in general is you have to have a guy who's able to reset the pocket and move when things break down.
Yeah, so he's 6'2", 180, so already pretty big for his age. I think probably 6'3", 6'4" is what he's going to end up being. But, I mean, he's an elite prospect, like I said, in basketball and football. This guy averaged 28 points per game as a freshman in basketball, and his team, I think, either won or came in second for the division in Texas. So really, really high-level athlete. Last year, guys, as a football player, 2,422 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and this is insane. 82.2% completion percentage, which is absurd. Ran for 709 yards and 11 touchdowns. I mean, like we talked about earlier on, the tape, and then he's also got athletic traits that are just off the charts. I think this guy's going to be a really good football player wherever he goes. He talked about, how Texas was like that dream offer. He got super excited about it. So maybe this is the guy we key in on, and he's committed to the University of Texas, probably if how they do it by next summer. That's how this would work usually. So in a year's time, he could be in that class for 2027. And this is just total projection, but I see a little bit of Jaden Daniels from the Commanders. I think there's a little bit of that game, or a little bit to him. And I think he can be a really, really good football player for Texas. Again, total projection. Like, this guy just finished his sophomore season for football. So I don't know what we're going to see down the road. He could completely stop growing. He could choose basketball, and then, maybe we can pursue him for basketball, but I'm not sure what happens here. But all I know is this guy's a really good football player. I think he projects pretty well, and he seems like he really wants to go to the University of Texas, or at least thinks very highly of the University of Texas.
And I'm glad that it's shifting. I'm glad folks are regarding Texas, period, right? Because for a long time, kids like this were not regarding Texas. And so, we've seen a shift in the last 5 seasons where these elite kind of guys, these top 50 kids, Texas is now one of their dream offers again. And not just because they're from the state, but because Texas is a place that's playing well, that's winning, that's putting guys in the league. So Texas's ability to continue to do that over the next couple of years will be great. And if, Texas, if Sark has his druthers, I'm sure he'd probably have his quarterback, whoever it is, whether it's Bryant, or go back and watch us last week. You talked about some other prospects as well. I think Texas wants to have probably their guy locked up going into his junior year. You see that's pretty standard nowadays in recruiting. So hopefully in the next 3 or 4 months, we see whoever it is, Texas pulls the trigger on Texas, and they have that locked up going into this next season.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very interesting. And it'd be crazy if we go from Arch Manning to Dia Bell to Gunnar Rivers to Kavion Bryant, all former athletes, kids, and all really, really talented in their own right. So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps us out. That does it for Kavion Bryant, gets offered from Texas. And that does it for the 56th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, rain, shine, holiday or not. We are here. So please hit that like button, subscribe. Also, check us out on Twitter. That is Gerald's Twitter right there. Also his Blue Sky as well. And you can check out his Longhorn Pod, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, just like the Voice of College Football. Check it out on all those platforms. And that is my X handle or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, right there. We really appreciate you guys being here. And as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.